Hey everyone, it's me, Josh Masters, and I'm going to bring you this week's devotional actually from my backyard, so we might be dealing with a little bit of background noise. But the reason that we're back here is that I wanted to show you this incredibly large pile of rosebush prunings. It's about 6 feet tall, and I don't know how wide and how deep, but yearly prunings from a rosebush should not be this big, and it shouldn't take this much work. But the content of this week's devotional is going to explain to you why I had to do all of that extra work, and hopefully it will help you out. So let's take a listen to this week's devotional from www.joshuajmasters.com, and it reads like this. When Gina and I bought our house, we fell in love with the landscaping. The previous owners meticulously designed the property to bloom in cycles. So this created a seasonal adventure in our own yard, allowing us to see something new nearly every single week as it bloomed. Never having owned a house before, I didn't know much about gardening. What I can tell you, now that I know what these are, is that the knockout roses in our backyard were completely out of control. Now, everything that I read told me to prune the rose bushes all the way down, basically to the stubs. But I couldn't figure out, and I couldn't imagine how that could be good for the plant. So what I did was I just cut off the excess and I made them look pretty. The result of that was that the plants weren't nearly as healthy. They struggled to survive. They struggled to bloom. All because I was looking at short-term aesthetics over long-term growth. See, we have to be careful that we don't do that in our own spiritual lives, that we don't let that happen in our spiritual lives. Being transformed to be more like Jesus is a process of continual pruning. We don't like the idea of pruning. It sounds too harsh. We'd prefer that we call it trimming or gardening or some other friendly term. But pruning by any other name still means that Jesus and God need to cut out the unhealthy parts of our lives so that we can produce fruit. Consider what Jesus told his disciples. I am the true grapevine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch of mine that doesn't produce fruit, and he prunes the branches that do bear fruit so they will produce even more. John 15:1 and 2, and that's from the NLT version. So there's something very interesting about those two verses, about that passage, and that's this. There's only two options. You can be cut off, or you can be pruned. There's no option to remain the same. We can't remain the same in our spiritual walk. Like my rose bushes, the idea of spiritual pruning is often more about short-term aesthetics than long-term growth for many of us. The question then becomes, are you willing to let the gardener prune us back far enough to produce fruit? How do you sense God is pruning an area of your life? We'd love to know. You can comment below, either on YouTube. There's a text version of this devotional on our website, www.joshuajmasters.com. We'd love to have you go there and subscribe. Also, we'd love for you to check us out on Twitter. We have @JoshuaJMasters. @JoshuaJMasters is my personal account. We also have a fun account called @TheBatPastor. @TheBatPastor. And of course, most of you know that my current manuscript that I'm working on, the subject is Franklin, my little dog Franklin the pup. So he also has a Twitter account, and that's @Franklin the pup. We'd love to have you check out all those things, and we'd love to have you comment below and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next week.